My name is Geoff Friedman, and I'm actually, it's Lost Coast Forest Products, but last year we actually, with growth and everything that we're doing, we merged with a great company centered out of Columbia, Maryland, called American Wood Fiber. So we're actually known now as AWF Lost Coast. We joined some people together in all of our yards, and what we've done is kind of put together an American Firewood Producers and the Distributors Association to represent us so that we have some strength in Washington and some understanding from the federal regulatory side how we can work things out. So we've put this association together. At this point, we don't charge any fees for it. It's an association-led, driven program, and what we've begun to do is put together a program for certification and safety of firewood. Distribution permit from the USDA to make it work. And in some cases, retailers are now saying, all the wood we buy, like for instance Tractor Supply, we won't buy any wood in the United States unless it's got a USDA seal on it. Well, there's parts of the United States where you can't get wood that's not in a quarantine zone to be certified as passing for that quarantine. So by us putting a certification program together, working with the USDA, with their American Marketing Service, the agricultural service of the USDA that markets like Purdue chickens. They have that USDA organic seal on it. What that is a trusted, process verified program. And it says that basically a third party is verifying the testing process and the procedures of how we got our wood to a certification level of X, Y, or Z. And the third party verifies that process, and the testing procedures are sent real time right into the USDA so that they can monitor the verification real live time. It was developed to create a national standard and certification program for the production and manufacturing of firewood, mainly for woodborne pests. Now we've expanded that, and we'll talk about that too, but pests could be found from their origin by very, very far. We're shipping from distribution centers to, say, a Lowe's distribution center in Wisconsin, and they run out and need some wood in a hurry. They ship it down to Kentucky. Well, what assures that it has the same certification from one state to the other? What we're doing through all the retailers and consumers in identifying how we're going to eradicate it, have it third-party verified and testing, we hope to have a seal that shows this testing USDA certified verification process that we can take it anywhere. We can take it into parks, campgrounds, municipalities, anywhere. It'll be certified as passing the highest standards of testing for bugs, mold, and mildew anywhere in the United States. So that will eliminate the problem of the guy comes up to a campground, he's got 5 bundles of wood, and the guy says, well, we don't know where it came from, so it's got to get thrown away. You can't bring it into this park. Other places that are certified to have that seal, the parks can take them in. So we're going to eliminate this problem. We're going to make it easier for the consumers of what to choose. Now part of that is we heat treat it. And as Neil said earlier, you're adding value to it. And once people see the difference between good kiln-dried wood and seasoned wood, and there's also a big, what people say is seasoned, there's a variance of, I believe, between 20 to 25%. Well, the difference between 20 and 25% is a lot. It's huge. So is it 20 or is it 25? And then it was mentioned earlier, if you let wood really season well, it could get down to 15. So what we want to do is get it to a level where it's not going to produce or breed mold or mildew. So we wanted to get it down to about 15% is where we feel, and working with some of the scientists involved in this, that it will eliminate mold and mildew. And we can check that off as part of the thing that, everybody wants to blame firewood as the vector for all things bad. They had a discovery of a certain laurel wilt down in the southeast. All of a sudden they went through a whole description of the whole thing, and it said it's figured that firewood is the vector that it came in on this state. We want to eliminate that. We want to have firewood as a safe consumer product that people can feel good about. So our membership, in doing this, we've made it open to virtually everybody to join. And we welcome anybody. At this point, we don't charge anything for membership. We're doing it as a self-funded, as-we-go program. And that's the way we like it. That way we don't have any influence
from any outside groups, people putting pressure on us to have certain things accomplished. The benefits are obvious. We're part of a unified voice, and we're helping to set the standard for production and management of firewood in the United States. And we also help to navigate the complex, restrictive, and conflicting regulations that go from state to state to help sort them out and be your advocate if we have to get a hold of a state person. There was something that actually came up here in Maryland, and I'm going to speak to a couple people about it while I'm here in state. I was at a meeting in Denver of the National Association of State Foresters yesterday, and a Maryland forester said, yeah, we're telling everybody you can't bring any wood into any city, state, parks, etc., unless the wood originates in Maryland. And that's just wrong. That's absolutely wrong, and it's going to get corrected. The reason it's wrong is you can't restrict trade from one state to another, especially if it passes the regulatory requirements. And the second thing is that if it is certified, that's what we're looking for, is good, clean wood. It could have bugs in it coming from another place in Maryland, and the guy brings it into his park. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So we're getting to the bottom of that, and we're helping to navigate that, because people are saying, well, why should I make certified firewood? Or in this case, in your area, say you're in Maryland, you need to cook it for 100 till the inside core temperature reaches 140 degrees for 60 minutes. Well, if I do that, and the guy down the road isn't doing that, I've got more into my wood, I'm making less money. How can that be fair? So what we're trying to do is level the playing field and make sure that everybody is selling safe wood. And that helps clean up our industry. And as we're starting to mature, it makes it stronger and more legitimate. And it's not just the guy with a chainsaw and a six-pack of beer who goes out on the weekend and cuts a truckload of wood and brings in and sells his half a cord of wood on his pickup for a cord. You know. So we exist for the health and safety of our forests and for the protection and consumers of firewood. The association was created as a result of the concern by industry leaders regarding a variety of environmental conditions, such as, number one, invasive forest pests, and they have been spread long distances. They've tracked it, I believe, from Michigan all the way to Oregon. You know, a camper took a bundle of firewood, they found it in Oregon with EAB in it. And I myself have found wood that was supposed to have been treated from one state to another. And I report it. You know, it's got to be, it's got to be. If our kilns aren't working right, if we have an issue, we want to be able to solve that. We don't want to get a bad mark. So by having a third-party verification system and live, on-time real reporting, we'll eliminate any of those inconsistencies. Over the past 10 to 15 years, exotic insects like Asian longhorn beetle and emerald ash borer, the hemlock woolly adelgid have killed many trees. There's also, you know, the gypsy moth problem. There's pine shoot beetle. There's a number of them. So we're trying to address all of this and provide some guidance in manufacturing and distribution of the firewood so that your retailers, so forth, have the proper permits in hand when they're bringing in firewood into one point. That's a controlled distribution point. They have to meet the USDA standards for that, for care, custody, and control, and then shipping it back out. There has to be proper documentation, so we assist in making sure that all of our members know what they're supposed to do and how that documentation looks like. You know, the cost to the federal and state local budgets have exceeded hundreds of millions for eradication efforts. It's billions of dollars is what it costs our government to try and keep foreign pests out. And I go to Nature Conservancy meetings, and I sit on the State of California Firewood Task Force. We're very concerned about all these types of things. And they're very real. They're very real time. But what we're trying to say is we want to stop firewood as being the vector of being spread commercially across the different states. If we can phytosanitize that wood and we can certify it as being clean before it ever leaves our plant, who cares where it came from and how it got to our plant? Just as long as when it leaves our controlled zone, we can certify that it's bug and pest free, mold and mildew. That's the whole idea. And that will bring this industry into a whole new age. It's sort of like getting a good housekeeping seal. The consumers know they're getting a good volume in the package. It's clean. They're not going to get mold and mildew on their hands. The wives aren't coming home and wiping it on their shirt, and then their kids wipe on it, and then all of a sudden they've got an infection, and nobody knows why they got a virus, and their guy got a nose infection or whatever. It could be because they bring in those molds and mildews from the firewood. And let's face it, the ladies are the ones buying the majority of the packaged retail firewood. So we need to appeal to them and make the packages so that they're comfortable with it, so it's easy to hold up. You got a question?
On that topic, in your opinion, is the .75 cubic foot bundle more likely for a lady to purchase than a 1 cubic foot?
Absolutely. There's been a slow revolution that started about 15 years ago in California, and it's finally making its way here, and it's the .6 or the .65 bundle. Quite frankly, you can put more on a pallet, you can ship more units, less weight, more units per truck, and the consumer hardly even knows the difference. And there's been people that are finally starting to get it in here on the East Coast. And your buyer will say, well, you're getting it for this price. Yeah, but that's a .65. I'm selling you .75. Hey, it's a bundle of firewood. I don't care. All of a sudden, you'll start to see that size shrink down and the price stay close to the same. That'll be the next part of that game. Yeah, same thing. Same thing. So what we've come up with, and this on paper looks gold over here. This is supposed to be the gold standard over here. But what we're doing is we're, for the USDA and what we're trying to do for a certification program, is to meet and exceed all federal and state requirements. Some states require you heat for 160 degrees for 75 minutes, interior core temperature on your kiln. Some states state 140 for 60. Other states are in gypsy moth zones. They'll accept 133 for 30 minutes. Is that correct, Paul? Is it 133? 135. Okay. It's between 133 and 135.
It's around $1.30.
Yeah. So that will treat and meet the international standards, and that will also take care of gypsy moth. The 140 for 60 is you're certifying that you're meeting the federal requirement for EAB and other invasive species on firewood. The 160 for 75 is what the standard is for a few states. What we're going to do is make it 160 for 80. We're going to exceed that standard, that requirement. Therefore, we're in excess of what anybody, state or federal, is requiring. And we've done this in the processes by going to the quarterly meetings of the state health plant directors, and by meeting with some of the other foresters and other organizations to see what it is we can do to work with them to help get one homogeneous level of certification that they'll all accept. Pretty much everybody, to my knowledge, has signed off on the idea they would go with our gold certification standard at 160 for actually 80 instead of 75 and accept that. And that certification sticker that comes on the label, for me now as a producer, I'm producing in literally every state in the United States. I've got, I don't know, close to 30 yards, and every label has to be different. It has different labeling requirements every state, or it could have source and origin being different. With this type of a label and being certified and having USDA organic label on it, it'll have one certification number on it, and all anybody or inspector has to do is go to their information guide and look up, and it'll tell them exactly where that plant is and what it is. So therefore, we wouldn't have to put out 30 labels nationwide and control everything, or have bags pre-printed. This will take care of a lot of problems on our side. It also helps USDA and everything that they're trying to do, because now they've got one idea of what our industry is trying to get to for certification that they agree with. Instead of herding in 57 different wild cats every other day who's got 57 different ideas, here's the main standard, and here's what we're looking at. So it'll clean the industry up, give everybody one main set of standards to go to, and help level the playing field. So that when some guy comes into Lowe's with a bundle of firewood and sets it down and says, this is my bundle of firewood and I sell it for $1.50, and I come in and say, I sell mine for $3, and the guy goes, well, I'm buying the $1.50. Yeah, but you don't understand. This isn't certified firewood. It isn't this. It isn't that. Now his corporate is pushing him that he has to buy the certified firewood because he doesn't want that liability anymore. So we're doing him a favor. We're doing him a service. And what it's up to us to do is to show him that by selling a better package with more value in it, he can make more gross profit. He could keep the same margin percentage-wise, but he's going to make more dollars because he's selling that something that he's paying more for, and he's increasing his actual dollar gross profit. And that's a real important thing to understand about the kiln drying end of this business. You will charge more and you will make more. And that's what makes some of these guys that have been in the packaged firewood business before so reputable. And they're not going to kowtow and say, okay, I'll go over to this wholesaler and I'm going to drop my price by $2 a bag because I'm competing with Joe down the street who has an inferior product. I'll let my product talk for itself. And when you have a problem and you run out or you get moldy wood or you get bugs in the wood, come and see me. Here's my price. Oh, by the way, in season it's probably going to be 15% higher because I've already committed most of my inventory for everybody else. That happens all the time. Now this year, it was a kind of mild winter. People didn't sell as much wood. So what I'm seeing out there right now is people are coming into retailers and dropping their price, which is a huge mistake because it didn't cost them less. And it didn't cost them less to hang on to it. And they still got the wood. And what happens when the weather does turn terrible? People pay you whatever you want. So I had a situation this year in Chicago where I was hardly selling any wood. I had 80 trucks sitting in a warehouse, and a big chain, who I do business nationwide, called me and said, I really got a problem in Oregon. I need 20 loads, and I need them immediately. Can your plant start giving me an extra 5 a week in Oregon? I have a plant in Idaho and 2 in Oregon. I can't do it. I'm out there. The weather was bad. I was just selling like crazy. I said, tell you what, I got this certified firewood sitting in a warehouse in Chicago, and I can put it on rail, and I can have it to you in 6 days, and you'll get 2 loads a day every day for 10 days. Done. What's my price? I'll take it. Because it's either he has no wood, makes no profit, or he has wood at a higher price and makes a little bit higher profit. Maybe he sells a little less wood, but he's going to make just as much profit. So they understand that game. They know how to play that game. They'll play you as long as they can to get a better price. But you've got to have enough confidence in yourself. The package that you're producing is quality, and you're there for them, and you're consistent, you're going to get the business. So typically what we do every year is we sit on 400 or 500 trucks just for problems around the country. And we had a few problems, but we've got probably 300 or 400 trucks left over from last year. But you've got inventory. You don't need to dump it or get rid of it in a panic. Banks understand inventory is static and it's good as long as you can make your interest payments on it. That's part of the business cycle. So that's good as gold sitting in your warehouse. I suggest you don't give it away. Just protect it so you don't get any bugs or mold or mildew on it because it rained or got wet in there. Any questions? Any comments? Yes, sir.
No moisture requirement on the silver.
That's correct. We could, but we haven't decided whether we do that or not yet. There is currently no moisture requirement for APHIS PPQ specs and regulations. So if you want the best, you're going to go to this. And quite frankly, we're going to push everybody this way. It is going to cost more to do, because you're adding more value to it. You're keeping it in the kiln for a longer period of time. I don't know. I was going to ask you this morning, but there is a measurable percent of cost between 140 for 60 to 160 for 75 or 80. That is quantifiable. It's not that much, because once you get it to a certain temperature, the rest you're almost home free on. You're almost in the cool down period. So yes, it's a little tough because what's happening is we don't want to take the rural firewood guy out of the business. It's not what this is about. If he stays within his 50 miles or his home range, can manage his own inventory, can understand how to look for signs of infestation or whatever, and be good enough in his business not to spread it, that's one thing. They have their niche for small deliveries for a quart at a time, a quarter quart. But when you're going to big places like Lowe's and Home Depot and Walmart, you've got to guarantee safety and security. If they get one bug in a grocery warehouse, you just paid to have the entire warehouse exterminated. And there's not even a question about it. It's not, we want you to do it. It's what day is your guy coming in? And we want a certified sign-off. So there's a lot of liability involved owing to some of these bigger customers. And that's why Lost Coast has a certain niche in the market that deals with this, because we deal with all the large customers. We take care of all these problems. We take care of the liability. We make sure what gets shipped is proper and that the paperwork is proper. We work with the distribution centers to make sure they have distribution agreements. We work with every single yard and every single customer to say, if we ship you from this yard to this distribution center, where are you going with everything? So that we make sure that whatever yard that we're coming from, it will be compliant going back out. And we've identified that so that if the USDA were to come in and look and do a field inspection, they can look at our label, they can see where it's at, and they have a level of confidence of knowing that we've done the right thing. Yes, sir.
Of the bags and boxes that you have going out for big box stores, do any of them store them outside for sale, or are they all coming inside?
I would say the majority store them outside and up on their warehouse racks out in the garden area and stuff like that.
And then when the customer actually, when they bring them down to sell them, they leave them outside?
Yeah, I mean, but Lowe's, like Lowe's and Home Depot, they have pallet spots inside, but they also will keep them outside. The grocery chains, mostly, they're inside. You know, and if they are outside, they're undercover right by the front door. Yes, sir.
The last question. Can mold get in your wood after you treat it?
Anything's possible.
Right.
If you don't weather protect it, what do you mean what happens then? We're certifying it that when it leaves our plant, it's mold and bug free.
Right.
Now the retailer, through proper care, custody, and control, shouldn't have any problem. But if if a guy does leave a pallet outside and it rains on it, and you're in Alabama and the next day it's 90 degrees and there's water all over the bundles, it could grow mold. But that is post-production. And there's not a lot that you can do about that.
And that's something you asked about when they contact you with it, or something you see.
Well, we'll talk to you about it and say, well, exactly what is the situation? I was saying earlier, we're sending kiln-dried wood to Meijer, M-E-I-J-E-R, out of Michigan, and we had a yard in Wisconsin, and the guy called one day and he says, we got this store in such and such Michigan, and it's got mold on 2 pallets. We need credit. We researched it. Where is this mold coming from? How could it get there? The guy's storing it in his greenhouse. It's a terrarium. Yeah, I mean, I can't control that. You can't control it. So we corrected the problem by telling him what he needed to do and where he needed to store it. Oh, problem solved. And by the way, we're not giving you credit for those 2 pallets.